an old friend who needs no introduction at all. And in fact, I sat in on a prior session on Aadhaar, and it was a fascinating topic. 470 million people with, who have been identified, 30 million a month. It's fantastic. So I want to really welcome back Ravi Gururaj and Nandan Nilekani upstairs.
So Nandan, welcome to NPC.
Thank you.
I think this is, you've been here once at least before, I think.
That's right.
So thank you for coming in. It's not normally in our DNA to invite a cabinet minister to our software conferences.
I'm honored.
But there's a good reason we called you here today, and for that you were interested in coming and speaking to this community. We made an announcement just an hour ago to the press. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what that is.
No, I think I'm really excited because the NASSCOM Product Council, along with UIDAI, has announced the Aadhaar Diffusion Project, which is to get people to understand the Aadhaar platform, the ecosystem, the APIs, and start building innovative applications. So I think that's a great move, and I look forward to a lot of the very smart people in this room building very, very innovative applications in the coming months.
Great. So, and for the benefit of the audience, we've made that announcement only this afternoon, and there'll be details available afterwards. So, I think, Nandan, when we first started talking about this, you made an analogy to GPS, which you've used a couple of times.
Yeah.
But I think it's even more apropos in this audience about, I think from the consumer point of view, people understand it, but from the ecosystem point of view.
I think we have to recognize that when you look at the two biggest innovation platforms for the last 30 years, whether it's the internet or GPS, both came out of public goods, right? I mean, internet was started in the US, DARPANET, then TCP/IP came along. Even the development of the HTTP protocol was done at CERN in Switzerland. The development of the Mosaic browser was done at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, again a public university. So a lot of these basic fundamental things were done in the government, and then it was opened up to innovation and all the things which have happened. GPS again was designed for missile guidance, put in the public domain in 2000, and today we have a huge GPS economy of maps, inertial navigating systems, self-driving cars, and all that. So we see the Aadhaar platform as something similar. If you can create an identity platform which is digital, which can be verified and authenticated online, anytime, anywhere, make it open with a set of APIs, and then you can allow people to build apps. We expect to see a lot of apps. I mean, the original government purpose is to use this to make subsidies and benefits more efficient, which we will do as part of our job. But since this platform exists, we also look forward to new apps coming along.
Got it. And is Aadhaar ready for, can a developer in the audience start to use it?
There are 470 million people with Aadhaar. We already done about 15 million online authentications. We have done 15 million cash transfers. We have 32 million Aadhaar-linked bank accounts. This is real stuff. And this month alone, we're adding 30 million new Aadhaar holders.
Right.
So this is scaling up very, very rapidly.
So, I think, just to take the elephant in the room, there's a lot of talk in the press about the Supreme Court thing, there's privacy concerns. We've had NGOs talk about, security and privacy again, Could you clarify all that? Is Aadhaar, I know you all have spent a lot of time architecting the platform.
So I think there's a huge amount of attention paid to making this a very secure and private platform. It's purely an ID system. It doesn't accumulate data about anybody. It's only used for a yes-no verification of identity online. And the only way data is sent out is an resident authorized KYC. So there's a whole host of things. The whole idea is to create a federated architecture, so no one entity has data about a person. So I think a huge amount of security, encryption, anonymization. So a lot of, in fact, Pramod is here, who are chief architects, they've designed this whole thing. A huge amount of attention to these things. So I don't see that as a real issue. The Supreme Court things which have sub judice, in fact, today was supposed to be the hearing, is specifically about whether government programs should make it mandatory. It's really not the main thing. We see the platform as going to be huge in driving innovation, and so we look forward to that happening.
Got it. So, in a startup in this room that's going to start leveraging the platform, and especially if they jump on and, any platform a startup engages with is a significant risk, right?
Sure.
Because it takes a lot of effort potentially to build to that.
Yeah.
So you would recommend that they should go ahead, not worry about all the flack you hear in the news.
No. I think this is here to stay. I mean, 470 million people. Whereas we have a platform with 500 million people.
Right. Got it. So we're going to open it up to the audience too for lots of questions. So if people can, we'll get some mics in the aisles. We've got it in a relatively short session. So I'm not sure if the organizers in the back have the mics ready. But if there are questions, please start to put your hands up. We'll point to you, and then we will keep going. Yeah, we have one question.
Hello, Mr. Nilakani. Thank you very much for gracing the occasion here. I have a question for you which is not strictly Aadhaar, so I hope you and the rest of the audience here can forgive me for that. There are reports, unconfirmed in the press, that you are going to be standing for the South Bangalore constituency election.
Okay, so that was the second elephant in the room, so you may as well get rid of that one too.
I'll have a separate meeting on that.
Yeah.
So what, if that's the case, what are your plans for South Bangalore?
I think we'll defer that question, and I think Nandan, he hasn't denied it, so that's good indication. I'll speak on his behalf.
I'm not saying anything.
So, one of the concerns, I was talking to some of the startups as we were walking over, right? And I think you saw 4 different use cases in the audience.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a few of the use cases you're seeing? I mean, you're much more familiar with the potential of UID than I am.
I think let me explain the 4 capabilities this is giving. The first is this is the only platform in the world where 500 million people have a unique number, and the system is designed using large-scale biometric deduplication to make sure that you get only one number. This uniqueness property is very useful when you want to have a list of beneficiaries and you want to make sure there are no ghosts and duplicates. So that's benefit number 1. That's what the government is going to use it for. That's what is going to drive huge amount of savings. India spends 300,000 crores a year on entitlement benefits. Even if you get a 10% productivity improvement in that, this thing pays for itself. So goal number 1 is uniqueness for housekeeping of databases. Second thing is that Aadhaar is the only platform which provides online authentication of identity using a biometric like a fingerprint or an iris or an OTP to a phone or an email ID. And therefore, for the first time, you have tokenless authentication. You don't have to distribute debit cards, PINs, passwords, none of that. You walk in, use your finger, your eye, or your phone, and you can authenticate yourself. So this online authentication anywhere, anytime, 24/7, and we have designed a system that can do 100 million authentications a day, will then be used by apps as a way to distribute cash or open a health record or whatever be the app. The third big use of this is it's also an electronic KYC. KYC is something you do when you open a bank account, buy an insurance policy. So Aadhaar KYC can be used to open a bank account, get a mobile connection, get an insurance policy, get a LPG connection, buy a mutual fund. So suddenly you created a single gateway to accessing public services, which can be built into a lot of apps. And the final important thing is that Aadhaar is a financial address. So Aadhaar is linked to a bank account, which our friends in NPCI and Visa have done, allowing you to send money to an Aadhaar number. Now that can be used for government benefits, enterprises, or even for person to person. So we have just launched the Aadhaar IMPS bridge with NPCI, where if I know your Aadhaar number, I can just send money to your Aadhaar number from my mobile phone. So this allows a platform for P2P transactions. So it's uniqueness, which allows cleaning up databases, authentication that allows you to use as a point to authenticate online, eKYC as a gateway to public services, and Aadhaar as a financial address for streamlining payments. So somebody building an app will mix and match these 4 capabilities depending on their business case.
I'll come back to more questions in the audience. But when I look at the REST APIs that you all have, it's shockingly simple. what does Aadhaar as a backend for software developers actually provide? It seems to be you just ask a question and you're told a yes/no answer.
Yeah.
And with eKYC, it's a little bit more, right?
Yeah, with the standard authentication, you just say, you claim to be Ravi, Aadhaar number 123, we'll confirm that it is Ravi. So it's a yes/no answer. If you go to a bank to open an account, like we launched something with Axis Bank last week, where in 1,000 branches you can open a bank account just with your Aadhaar number. You go in, you say Ravi, Aadhaar number 123, you authenticate, you authorize UID to release your name and address to the bank. That becomes the KYC, the bank account gets opened, instant electronic paperless.
Got it. So you walk in with no documents. Thanks. But a couple of questions in this mic. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Richard and I'm US-based entrepreneur. And my question is, I'm hearing a lot about government role, NSA and everything in US where they are tapping information. Do you see any privacy concerns here in US and how are you handling that?
Well, this is actually designed not to accumulate data. As I said, it's only an ID system, and it only has a name, address, date of birth, sex, email ID, phone number, and the biometrics which are used for deduplication, authentication. And all of the data resides in the respective systems. For example, if the bank uses this for authentication, the bank details are in the bank. If the healthcare system uses for authentication, the healthcare system records are in the healthcare system. So by design, it's designed to be optimally ignorant, and it's called a federated architecture. So I think the kind of thing that you talked about was government accessing private databases and getting what they want. That's a whole separate problem. But this platform is designed actually to minimize privacy and security concerns.
Thank you.
Nandan, just to follow up on that, there will be ecosystem players that will aggregate profiles and things like that, right? And UID being, the audience will understand a primary key basically across all the databases. So you could have an aggregation layer that happens.
Okay. Somebody has to consciously collude for that activity.
Understood. But what are the protections against that in place, or is that still an evolving space?
I think that is evolving, so we'll have to come out with all the things in parallel. But this will require the healthcare provider and the bank and all to start colluding. There are whole other issues there.
Coming as a product.
Well, we'll wait for somebody with a mic, please.
So this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Coming as a product entrepreneur, I have a bank account, I have a gas connection, I have all these things. Do I still need the Aadhaar card?
No, you're welcome not to have it.
Okay.
We're not forcing you to have it. But if you are willing, today, if you are willing to pay the market price for the gas connection, it's fine. But if you want to get a subsidy, then you need to have the Aadhaar link to the bank account. Or tomorrow it's a convenience thing. Tomorrow, once you have an Aadhaar linked bank account, and let's say that and your taxi driver has one, and you take a taxi early in the morning to the airport, doesn't have change, you can just send money to the taxi driver's Aadhaar number, and it will electronically debit your bank account and credit his account in real time. So then it's something convenient for you to have. So if you want those kind of features in life, you'll get it. Or there are going to be embassies that are talking about providing fast-track visa for those who have Aadhaar numbers. So you want to get a fast-track visa next time, you need an Aadhaar number. So it's all about, there's going to be more and more applications that will emerge, where you'll think it's a good thing to have this. But if you don't want to have it, be my guest.
So, they often say, convenience and utility trump privacy and security, right? Is this one of those cases where, even with, let's say, the PRISM scandal on, all of Western Europe still uses the GSM cell phones, or even the ministers, everybody, they haven't changed anything, right?
Obviously, there's a larger issue of privacy and security in a fully digital world, and it's just one of the many things there. But in general, I think over time, as more and more people build apps, the convenience that you will get from that will provide the impetus to have a number. And fact of the matter is 500 million people have walked in and done this, so they clearly see this as something useful.
So I have a very basic question. What is the difference between National Population Registry and UID? Why, as in, we have to register for both of the things separately?
Yeah, see, the NPR is a registry that the Home Ministry is creating under the Citizenship Act. But the two programs are integrated in the sense you can enroll to a bank or a state government and get an Aadhaar number, or you can enroll to NPR and also get an Aadhaar number. So the end product for you is still an Aadhaar number. And if you have an Aadhaar number and go to the NPR, then you don't have to give your biometrics again. So net, the backend for both is the same. It's the Aadhaar number.
So this question is not about Aadhaar, but relevant to entrepreneurs. Question is, there are many countries like Singapore and others who offer significant tax breaks or even fund from the government for startups. Is there any way you influence this from the government's perspective, or do you see it happening in India in the future, where there could be much bigger tax breaks and more benefits for entrepreneurs?
Well, I mean, I'm not really applied my mind to this, but there are, I don't know, there's this National Innovation Fund which is coming up. There's something called the Technology Development Board which is giving grants and low interest loans. So there are various government schemes for entrepreneurs, but I'm not directly involved with that.
But fundamentally, you're very supportive of a private-public partnership in supporting entrepreneurial ecosystem, right?
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is that government creates public goods like the internet or GPS or Aadhaar, and private entrepreneurs build apps that are useful to society on these public goods.
So
Yeah.
just one question, basically two questions. First is the cost of Aadhaar, especially in emerging market like India. Is it kind of worth the benefit? What is the cost benefit to the exchequer in an emerging economy? And one more thing, even in developed countries like the UK had a program similar to this, but scrapped it because of different reasons. And even the US, assassin fraud is on the rise in spite of all the security precautions taken even by the US government. So security number fraud is still on the rise.
Yep,
So how would you contemplate both of these issues?
So, Nanda, before you ask the question, I mean, when I was doing my research on Aadhaar, I couldn't come up with a good estimate of what the actual cost was. Can you clarify that?
Yeah,
What is the investment the nation has put into Aadhaar?
Yeah, the cost per individual Aadhaar is between 100 to 150 rupees. So a population of 120 crores, the cost is between 12,000 to 15,000 crores for the entire project to give each and every resident of India, every man, woman and child, an Aadhaar number. Our social programs are about 300,000 crores a year is what we spend or more on entitlement and subsidies like scholarships, pensions, PDS, fertilizer, LPG, kerosene. LPG alone is a 40,000 crore subsidy. So 300,000 crore subsidy, and there are many estimates of the amount of leakage in these programs from 10% to 30%. Let's say, on a conservative basis, you get a 10% productivity improvement in a public expenditure. That's a 30,000 crore saving on a total capital cost of 15,000 crores. This is 30,000 crores every year. So this program pays for itself in a few months.
We'll take one more question.
Yeah.
But you have the other part, no?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, I think the UK program and India has nothing to do with each other. In a country where everybody has a driver's license, a passport and an EU card, it's not clear why you need one more card. But in a country like India where half the children in some states don't have identity, can't get access to public services, can't travel, can't get jobs, can't get to school, it's imperative that we give them an online ID, and this program leapfrogs people from having no ID to a digital ID.
I have a question on the editing of data.
One second. Go there first, then come to you. Last two questions.
Okay, so how do you keep the Aadhaar database updated? Let's say, for an example, a person died, and then how does it get updated?
Yeah, so let's first look at the change. What are the fields we have? We have the name, address, date of birth, sex, email ID, phone number, and biometrics. Biometrics, we do expect people to come and update if every 5 years or 10 years, we're going to have a policy on that. Your name unlikely to change often, your sex unlikely to change often, your date of birth unlikely to change often. So the only volatile field in that is your address. So we have an address update mechanism where across the country or through a mobile phone or a internet connection you can do an address update. Now at the time of death, we are building an APIs and platform. So if the death certificate system sends us a file that this person is dead, then we can mark it. Otherwise, we will apply business rules. For example, we'll say that if there's no activity on an Aadhaar number for n number of years, then we'll probably treat that as inactive. So there are some rules we will have because we don't know. But remember, it's basically used for resident authorized activities. A resident has to participate in an authentication. A resident has to participate in a KYC. So the person is dead, he just doesn't participate in those actions.
We'll take this last question, or I think in the green. Okay, go ahead.
My question is, if I'm building an app on top of the Aadhaar platform, what is the mechanism for a private company to enroll itself? And what are the kind of costs that we incur for this? Is there a per transaction or per query cost?
Great point. Yeah. To become a partner, you have to onboard with us and become an authentication user agency. Today we have maybe 50 to 75 companies and government departments who have become authentication user agencies. So they sign up an agreement with us, and they have to come through a authentication service agency which provides the network infrastructure. So most of our customers like you have signed up and become AUAs. As far as the pricing is concerned, we do intend to have a price on authentication and eKYC, but it's going to be very reasonable. In fact, tomorrow morning in Delhi, we have a pricing conference where we have called all our current ASAs and AUAs to debate and make sure that we have a reasonable pricing model. But the whole idea is to create a service that will be used for large-scale usage. As I said, we're designing the system for 100 million authentications a day. So we expect, the pricing will be very, very reasonable.
And there's one question that a lot of people here have is, who owns this database? Is this UIDAI which owns this database?
No, UIDAI is a Government of India department. This project is funded by the Consolidated Fund of India with parliamentary approval. So the database is a public good created by the country, and there's nobody else involved. And anyway, the database is not available. If only it can be used for authentication or KYC. It's not that your address is being given to somebody else. You only when you authorize with the KYC that your address is given to somebody else. I mean, I would say, given that large amount of databases today are on the internet, your address and all that, I think this is the most secure design that is around.
Thank you. Nandan, I have one last question for you, and as we wrap up here, you've built one of India's iconic brands and companies. But in the Aadhaar system, do you think you have something that is actually going to outlast, and in terms of the Infosys, the legacy of Infosys versus the legacy of Aadhaar?
No, I think they're two different, very exciting and things that I've done, and I think both will be there for a long time. Just that I think the thing with Aadhaar is that if 1 billion people's lives can improve, that's a huge multiplier.
Right. And so let me ask you another question. Is it more likely that Facebook will be around 25 years from now, or Aadhaar? Which one will be around?
Aadhaar will be there for sure.
Will you be using Aadhaar to log into Facebook?
No, Aadhaar will be there for sure. Facebook also could be there.
Yeah, okay, good. Thank you, Nandan.